Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all for our program tonight. The first program today afternoon, the first one in 2021 with Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have close to 33 members on Zoom and close to 50 members on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to 2021 Spiritual Fitness.
Thank you very much, JM, and I'm glad to know that it's not nighttime because the days fly by these days. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope it's still okay to say that at this late stage, but I've been missing you all and really happy to be back. It was a momentous year last year, I think. A lot of growth, and we spent a lot of time together, many of us. Those of you who have been coming regularly, those of you who are joining, I welcome you. Thank you very much. It's a safe environment for us to explore consciousness and to today set goals for the new year. I talked in the title about conscious goal setting for mindfulness, and we'll be going into that in a few minutes. Have you taken time yet, JM, to set some goals for the new year?
Good question. Good point. I do have goals. Yes, I do have goals for the new year.
I always find every year my wife and I take some time, sit down, and actually talk. It's amazing because if you live with somebody, maybe what's considered talking may be just cursory kind of talks, hi, bye, and what's the business of the day, but actually taking time to say, so how are things really going, and what do we really want to achieve? Sometimes it takes a little while to get down to that layer where you're vulnerable and saying, yeah, let's try this. It's kind of a mixture. There's maybe a little fear that if I commit to something, will that change my life and I'll get out of my comfort zone? And I see Rajesh smiling up there. So it is a consciousness activity, really deciding what we want, where we're going. Where are we now, actually? Who are we, for that matter? We've been talking a lot about that over the last year. So let's start off, because we can. We can decide what to do in this room here. Let's start with a little bit of meditation, some introspection, because it's very healthy. And we can try again today by sitting up a little straighter than you were a second ago. It aligns the prana going up and down your spinal cord and also sends a message that something important is about to happen. And if you close your eyes, then you can become a little more aware of your inner environment. It's always helpful to start with the breath. So as your eyes are closed, your spine is a little straightened, just become aware of your breath. And then notice that it's nourishing your whole body. And breathe naturally, but keep your awareness on your breath. And notice also if there's any frenetic activity going on in your mind. Just see if it's moving around. Try to be aware of it. Don't be absorbed in it, but step 1 or 2 feet back from it, or even an inch, and notice. That's my mind. It's got its own algorithms. It's working just like a computer, software. I'm the conscious being who's aware of the mind. and take a little scan of your body. A second ago, you were looking at your breath and then your mind. And now, because you're a unit of attention, you're conscious, you can decide where to put your awareness, where to point your attention, and just notice your arms and feel their vibrancy. There's life, there's consciousness penetrating your arms. There's feeling there. Means there's sensory input coming in, and you're the one who can notice it. And move your attention down to your legs. And notice that they are also coursing with energy. I Sing the Body Electric, a poem which describes the life that pervades all things, and there's the conscious energy that runs through your body that's emanating from you. And now, be aware that you're aware. It's not a tautology. Because you're a unit of awareness, you can become aware that you're aware. And oftentimes, we are not aware of our own awareness. We're aware of our life situation, of what our mind is telling us might happen in the future, or thinking about the way I might have done things in the past if circumstances had been more favorable. But now, let go of all that and just be aware of your own awareness right here, right now. And breathe. And now to synchronize the spiritual energy, there's a vibrational energy that comes from the heart chakra, and that can be stimulated by the mantra Om. So I'll say the mantra, and from behind closed mics, you can use your vocal cords and utter this one syllable mantra along with me. I'll do it 3 times. And now just notice the introduction of that vibration into your consciousness. Actually, we're very sensitive. We pick up vibrations from the environment constantly. But we can also deliberately introduce vibrations that help to harmonize our inner environment. And Om is one of those mantras. And please bring your awareness back to your breath. some gratitude. Gratitude is very powerful. Be grateful. There's air to breathe. And then rub your hands together to bring some external sensation, and slowly open your eyes, come back into the room, and welcome back. So today, I'll talk a little bit about goal setting. Why would I bring that up? It sounds very, I don't know, corporate oriented or something. Of course, corporations, corporate means a body and it's got a purpose and so forth. We have a body, we have a purpose. As you've heard me discuss recently from the Yoga Sutras and even the Bhagavad Gita, there's a kind of programming that's there already in our minds because of the ways that we've interacted with the world. And it leaves impressions. You'll remember that I described those samskars, impressions. They're latent, however, they're reactivated according to the association we keep and at various intervals. Sometimes they randomly are activated. And there's a way in which Patanjali Muni describes that we're predisposed to certain kinds of tastes, smells, sounds, culture, and so forth because of the way our mind is programmed with these samskars. And we go into default mode unless we make a conscious decision to go in a different direction. And I mean, just in a common understanding, we can all appreciate that if you don't have any kind of plan, then your mind will wander or it'll just do whatever it wants. And oftentimes, without the right environment or association, maybe you can tell me if this is your experience, but the default mode tends to degrade. In other words, it's not necessarily progressive. So what is the yoga process? There are goals. In fact, as we talked over the last year about Ashtanga yoga, there are 8 steps that you walk up like a ladder in order to come to higher levels of consciousness. So these are goals. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there's descriptions of various levels of conduct that we can engage in order to develop our consciousness, develop our awareness of ourself as different from the body. You'll remember that this is the definition, actually, of knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one who knows the difference between him or herself and the field, which is the body. The body is a field, and we're in the field, is truly in knowledge. So how do we come to that point? Well, there are steps to take. There are goals to set. And it doesn't just apply to the practice of yoga. It applies to the way that we organize our lives, because we can live in various modalities. For instance, if I don't take care of my body at all, that gradually it will become difficult to think straight, to move about. In fact, the modern yoga asanas that are very popular, you'll see in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali describes, they're there simply so that your body can be fit enough that you can sit and meditate for some time. And our lifestyle does affect our consciousness. In the Gita, Krishna says, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu. Live a balanced life. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Don't sleep too much and don't sleep too little. Find the balance point. So for that, goals are important. He also says, don't recreate too much and don't recreate too little. Find the balance point in your life. And oftentimes, when we find ourselves with a worthy goal and we start developing and turning it into a series of habits in order to achieve the goal, there's a sense of fulfillment, and it permeates into the other aspects of our life. So let's look at a couple of slides, and then I'll take some reflections. I'd be really interested to hear how all of you work with goal setting. But I told you earlier in the pandemic about keeping a priority list. It was a life-changing experience. Just sit down with a pad, and I prefer legal pads. For some reason, it gives me a sense that I can, there's more space on there. So my mind's thinking, oh yeah, feel free to write it, whatever you like. I've written here, those who maintain their priorities and values, even when no one is looking, come to know the peace of integrity. And this has come up, I know, a lot for people I've been talking to during the pandemic, and that is, how are you doing by yourself? Sometimes we're out and about all the time, but nowadays more in quarantine in many places, and oftentimes by ourselves, left to our own devices, as they say. And so how's that going? It's an interesting experiment, isn't it? That, okay, here you are by yourself in a room, and how do you conduct yourself now that you're the only adult in the room and you have to supervise yourself? So in thinking about that, I noticed that when I actually overcome the mind and the whimsy of the senses to do anything and everything, and stick to my plan, which was well thought out, a good plan, I feel a sense of peace, a kind of a relief from what one poet called the tyranny of the senses and the mind. They can become quite tyrannical, and that is autocratic. We're doing it my way. But you can decide, you're a human, you can decide, no, I'm going to do it another way, and I'm going to set my own goals. And when you're able to overcome the mind, there's a sense of separation between you and your mind, just like we are doing in the meditation, noticing it. But acting that way in our lives may be a different matter. Let's see what else we have here, JM. When it comes to goal setting, my teacher used to say, disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal. And there's a way in which the wisdom texts talk about how human life is special, because although animals who are also conscious beings don't have the capacity to ask the bigger questions. This is according to the wisdom texts that say, Tato Brahma Jignasa. When you get a human body, it's a special model of body. And it comes with a facility to ask big questions like, why am I here? Where am I going? What's the ultimate purpose of life? So if at the top of your page, you have a sense of what is the ultimate goal in life, like, really, what's this life for? Then it tends to give some powerful energy. And if you don't have that, then there's always this underlying angst because there's not a clear definition. And of course, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. One of my favorite quotations from Alice in Wonderland. So I mentioned this earlier about the senses being bad masters. And a poet in Sanskrit many years ago wrote about this. Katadinam katina katita palita durnidesha. He called the senses. He said, they are always telling me what to do, but they've never given me time off. And I just followed them blindly for many, many years, but no more. Now I'm going to make up my own mind. And so in the poem, this poet says, Labdha buddhi. So in Sanskrit, buddhi means the intelligence. I'm going to use my higher sense that I would like to rise above just the dictates of my senses. Labdha means to gain. So I've gained my intelligence. Now it's strong. So I'm going to I'm going to decide where I'm going, not just my mind or my senses driving me in a particular direction. So in that picture, actually, it comes from another verse from the wisdom text. You'll see the chariot, which represents the body. We're in a body, and the passenger in the back is us. And if the mind and senses, so the mind is represented by the driver, and then you see all the senses. They're already illustrated for you, indicating the particular senses we have. And if the senses are out of control, the mind's out of control, then it's a wild ride. So yoga means to control the mind. And one of the ways to do that is to decide for yourself which way you're going to go. Set goals. Goal setting works in yoga also. One of my favorite quotes, actually, is, and I included in a book I wrote. It's about, it was written by the person who climbed the Himalayas. He's credited with first climbing, his first expedition, and he mentions how before he actually decided he was going to do it, there was a lot of doubt. But once he firmly decided, I'm going to do this, then he said the magic and power came into his life, the ability to do it. So I like to describe this goal setting and deciding that making a decision, an informed decision, what I'm going to do, or what the goal is. This is like turning a switch. The energy comes in. As soon as I decide and I say I'm going to do it, then the energy comes, and not before. If you don't commit to it, then you don't get the energy. It is a powerful experience. Once you decide, then you'll notice that there are other energies within the universe that are going to come into your life that will help you to move forward from places that you couldn't have even imagined before. So one of the practices is called always better service, the ABS principle. One of the ways in which to keep organized is to think how to do better service, always better service. So we notice all the things that we're doing and make a note where there's room for improvement, what's working well, where there's room for improvement. And I have this system that I implemented many years ago in some of the organizations that I work with and in my own life, to make at least 3 improvements every month. That's a definite number. And it's a very magical process. If you notice areas in your life where you'd like to improve, and then you make a determination to make at least 3 improvements each month. And it doesn't matter how small they are. They can be the smallest of the small. And as long as you decide, and this is one of the ways in which you can think about setting goals, is make 3 improvements every month. But you'll notice that you're inspired because you're making progress, you're moving forward. So here are some of my top goal setting tips. And this is a good time of year to hear about this normally. But before I go into this, these are very specific. I just want to hear any reflections, and I see some things are coming in on the board perhaps, but if you have any thoughts so far about anything that you've heard that you want to reflect upon or ask a question about, then please go ahead. It's a safe place to come into the Zoom room and ask. You can unmute and ask away.
There is a question on, I think somebody, Bianca, you want to say something?
Well, yes, I actually, when I saw the picture, like that body, like that person behind the driver seems really scared, really not enjoying the ride. So I was gonna say if you could comment on what's the the state of being at that point, that picture is sort of describing.
Sure. Well, have you ever felt like your life, your life? Well, you don't have to answer this as a rhetorical question, but have you ever felt like your life was careening out of control? There's a sense sometimes where there's events going on that I can't reconcile. The mind is hard to control. For instance, habits. It's really easy to develop bad habits and then feel really even disgusted with oneself. It's like, why are you doing that? And it's like, I don't know. Somebody's telling me I have to do it. And then
I mean, I'm sorry, because you begin enjoying, right? You do something because you like it. So at a certain point, I guess you become that image, like gray out that's in the picture. So
yeah, let's look at the picture. It's definitely dramatized, and yeah, Chariot's the body, the driver is the mind, and the senses sometimes just pull in a certain direction. Have you ever walked by the refrigerator and, a bowl of pudding called to you and you ended up sitting in a corner with a spoon and it was all gone? I don't know. There's ways in which they're like wild horses. They can just pull us in a certain direction. And the mind also can feel out of control. So
I guess my point is a bit more like they are there because that's the way for us to enjoy, right? Or to the line between enjoying and we are like animals in a sense, right? So we do receive information and we are in the extent that we do these things right at a certain level. So I guess the line between us enjoying or doing what's, I don't know, enjoyable or nice for us, and being on the other side, being this scared or this yes, this person that's not, or just doesn't have a personality, seems in that picture. So okay, so I'll let you finish, but that's more my question, like how to when I don't know, somebody that drinks, maybe drinking, it's fine, I guess. If you overdo it, of course it's going to be bad, but then some people do drink daily without hurting themselves. So that's more my question.
Well, there are various levels. Speaking of enjoyment, the senses seek their particular kind of enjoyment. I mean, you have to eat, right? And anyone will tell you that if you're on a diet and you're trying to stay healthy, because that's one of the most important ways in order to keep your body and mind healthy, is to have a good diet. And it's even perhaps more important than exercise, although I think that's important also. You have to have that, but diet is crucial. So, you know, when you're when you have a diet, you could just be very austere and eat something that is very boring, but you won't be able to maintain it. After some time, you'll give in and take something else. So those who talk about healthy diet, maintaining a decent weight, they always mention that you should have what you need to satisfy your senses. Just don't take too much, and make sure it's balanced. And that's the spirit of the verse I spoke earlier about balance. And the senses should be in a balanced state. That's called sattva. So there are ways in which you can overstimulate your senses. And these are described in the Bhagavad Gita and the other wisdom texts. They describe how if you, for instance, overstimulate your senses, then they become accustomed to that. And then they keep wanting more and more stimulation, a peak experience. And then unfortunately, it doesn't last. Just like with drugs, there's a way in which you have to take more and more to get the same peak experience you got the first time. Then the body starts to degrade because of the chemicals and so forth. These kinds of enjoyments or interactions of the senses with their environment are described in categories, like the middle mode called rajas. If you the way it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, okay, so in the beginning it's like nectar, in the end it's like poison. Whereas sattva, in the beginning it's like poison, but at the end it's like nectar. So like exercise, okay, I don't feel like doing it. Like this morning, early in the morning, I went out and I did exercise. And, you know, for a split second, my mind said, are you sure you want to do this? It's cold outside and everything. But after the blood was pumping and I was feeling the effects of the exercise and the endorphins were going, it's like, wow, I feel really good. That's more like poison in the beginning, nectar in the end. Something that's easy gratification. You get addicted to it. Television. It's like, it seems very nice. Just sit here and stare on the TV. And it's like, where were you? Well, last 7 hours, I was just staring down a tube. And, you know, what did you get? And then in the mode of tamas, the lowest mode, the enjoyment of the senses is destructive. I mean, there are kinds of ways to use the senses that they become more and more accustomed to very destructive kind of activities.
So is more being on the like on the very end of both sides, if I understand correctly, because if you don't do then what you like, at least at least a bit, then you end up
Yeah.
you end up not happy, right, or not enjoying your life.
Well, there is a way actually to have it, and yoga is not about stark renunciation, militant pulling back of the senses either, but it's about using your senses in such a way that they become illuminated. And actually, that kind of happiness in sattva is the enjoyment is much more. Your senses enjoy more. And
So,
there is
you would be wanting a different enjoyment. You would transform into wanting the things that you like would change. Is that what you that you?
yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I'm not attracted to smoking a cigarette. I never did smoke, but I'm not attracted to it because it's not appealing to me. I don't think I could even do it. I'd rather breathe air. I mean, I do like walking around breathing air. You know, to me, it's like a higher quality of enjoyment breathing that than breathing smoke. And, you know, and so I'm just accustomed to it. And the senses, the way we organize our life and the kinds of ways that we engage our senses they will adapt to that. So there's definitely a higher quality of enjoyment that you
So
can
like
have.
like a detox.
Yeah, detox.
Okay.
And the mind also can detox as well, as in the subtle level too. I mean, some people become addicted to all kinds of things for the mind that really are, they're not very progressive, and they're actually could be destructive. They could leave all kinds of really dark images in your mind. So, you know, developing a lifestyle in which you elevate yourself, this is called self-realization. And when you feel the light through your senses, through your habits, then you feel happier. And this is just a fact. According to the wisdom literatures, a real happiness starts at sattva, that higher level of enjoyment. And the senses also become detoxed. So does the mind. And you're freer. You're not forced, as I said before, by the tyranny of the senses, like addictions. They can be very oppressive. Especially certain types of addictions become overwhelming for people, and they walk around feeling, I mean, you could even look at lots of people who become very wealthy or something, they can buy lots of drugs, they just take some drugs, and the next thing they know, it rules their life. What to speak of spoiling relationships and so forth. You know, empirically, there's a lot of evidence for those kinds of activities. Okay, good questions, Blanca. Thank you very much. Let's go to a few more slides, and I'll just talk about goal setting. And here's my number one recommendation. This is elusively powerful, and that is decide what you want and write it down. Because there's this transfer, everything manifests in this world and in our lives from the subtle to the gross. It evolves. And when we decide what we want, we're actually looking within ourselves and say, which direction do I want to go? What do I want to have in my life? Now, when you write it down, pen, paper, it goes from the subtle level, the thought world, thoughts are things, onto the paper, and it actually starts to manifest in the form of symbols that you transfer that thought process into. It's in a grosser form. And from there are steps you take to make it manifest in your life. So first thing, decide what you want and write it down. And if you don't remember anything about goal setting from this presentation today, remember that, and you'll be able to take the essence. Okay, so the next is SMART goals. There are definitely ways to think about refining your goals and making sure they're specific and measurable. What gets measured gets improved. You can attain it, it's relevant and time bound. Just say, you know, when I'm going to complete this. I'll talk more about that in later slides. And write them in the present tense. There's some evidence that the mind, when you tell your mind in the present tense, in the positive, I do, I wake up, I read, and so forth. I'm saying the positive thing that I want to do, and I'm saying it as if it's in the present tense, I'm doing it now. Then your mind just assumes that's a fact, and takes up the process, and you can develop momentum from there. So instead of say, I won't do this, or I can't do that, then say, I do this, I do that. So next one is about breaking large goals into smaller tasks. And this is something, there's a science I studied in Japan some years ago called Kaizen, which means take the smallest step you can possibly imagine when you decide upon a goal. And just as in homeopathy, they take the most diluted form of the substance and say, because it's so subtle, it has an effect on you. Well, with goal setting, when it's very, very small, you can get going in a certain direction because you break it up into smaller parts. And I developed a system a while back called Be a Sage, Page by Page. And so I like books, always have. And I want you to notice something about the book that's sitting there on the table in that picture. See how it has a mass of pages? I want you to imagine how thin a page is. Could you measure it with any device that you have in your desk or on your desk right now? It's so thin. I noticed this one day. I was thinking, how am I even reading a book if it's so thin? It's like Zeno's law. If you ever study that Greek philosopher who said you can't actually go anywhere because before you go to the destination, you have to get halfway first. And there's an infinite number of halfways before you get to the end. So when I look at a book, I think, how is it even possible to get from the front part of the book to the back to read the whole thing? Because look how thin pages are. I mean, you turn one page and it's like, that's nothing. But I had a desire to read an epic that had 18,000 verses in it. It's 12 cantos, thousands and thousands of pages. And I always wanted to read it. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? It's too long. I don't have time for it. So then I heard a talk by Brian Tracy many, many years ago. And he said, anything that you're thinking about doing, divide it up into the smallest parts you can think of. And I thought, aha, let me find out how many pages are in this epic. Actually, it's behind me in my bookcase, and I've read it many times now. And how did I do it? I measured the number of pages. I found out how many pages there were in it. And then I said, aha, I learned how to do division. And all I have to do is take 365 or whatever I want to divide it by and say, how many pages do I have to read each day in order to finish the whole thing? And you know what? As soon as I figured out the number, it changed my life. It sounds so simple, but it gave me a perspective that, yeah, now I know I can do it because all I have to do is look at every day as a compartmentalized unit. And that's all I have to do that day is finish that number. And if it's too large, make it smaller. And so I like this saying, you're going to be 5 years older in 5 years anyway. But if you set a worthy goal and you do your little part towards it every day, it'll take you to a higher level, or you'll call progress by doing that. And there are ways in which every kind of task that you look at has little steps the size of a page. And when you just count them up and then say, how many of these little page size steps do I have to take in order to reach my goal by a certain time, then it becomes exciting. I've really been thinking a lot about this lately, these goals, and how the human brain goes for goals, because near my home, every morning and every evening, I take a walk, and I cross over a park that's near my home. And on the park, there's a basketball court, and there's always somebody there trying to shoot the ball through the hoop over and over again. I was thinking, if I landed from another planet, and I was like, what are these creatures here? And they have a ball, they throw it through the hole again and again and again. What are they doing? But then I went a little further, and there's a soccer field, and everyone there is trying to kick a ball into a net. And then I got down to the football field, and I could see the goalposts, and in my evening walk, I could see the stars start to come out, and they were framed within the goalposts. And I was thinking of how infinite the universe is. From my perspective, how could I even understand it? I mean, when I look at the cosmology of the world, this planet is like a little speck of dust compared to many of the other planets when it's side by side. So here are these goalposts, and they're looking off into this infinite universe. And I was thinking, humans need this in order to have some feeling of measurement that, okay, I can't think just everything's infinite. I have to frame it somehow and say, if I can get that ball through through those goalposts, then everything's okay. In fact, we'll pay you to do that if you can learn how to kick it through there. And that'll become a national pastime, getting a ball across a line or kicking it through. So the human brain kind of needs that. When we see a ladder, we want to climb it. And this is not out of step with spiritual philosophy. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about how, although sometimes I've even said in this class, are we human beings or human doings? Yes, we have consciousness and we can become aware of our consciousness, but consciousness is always active. Hence the saying, I think, therefore I am. And thinking is something. We're not nothing. And that means as conscious beings, we have some aspiration. So refining the aspiration, looking at a goal that actually takes us somewhere that's worthy. And of course, as I said earlier, atato brahma jignasa, when you're a human, you can shoot for something that's worthy of your
Sheila,
spiritual self. Yes?
Sheila has a comment on goals. Sheila, do you want to reflect?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I really believe in like writing goals down. I hadn't really done it before, and a couple years back, I went through a course where it was women, trying to get women into leadership roles, and we were to put down a goal that we had and break it into chunks like you were saying, and then find people in the room that could possibly help us. And it was really cool because there was so many people in that room that could help me with my goal. And what was cool about this class is at the last day, we had to write ourselves a letter. And we would get that letter mailed to us at the end of the year. And I remember writing to myself, and I got it a year after. And it just filled me with lots of emotion because I was very kind to what I wrote myself. I put in there that, I know that you tried to reach your goal. And if you did, awesome. If you didn't, it's okay because I know you will keep going. And that letter is still hanging in my wall because I know that in being in a corporate world, we're driven, do better, go higher. And it's taxing sometimes. So I like that we can break it up into little goals, but what I just wanted to share is we should also reach out to others to help us with those things because there's so many people, even in this community, that can help us. And I tend to forget that. But I just wanted to share how powerful that was for me to write it down and then write myself a letter. It was just really powerful. So I just wanted to share that.
I think that's a great idea. I'm gonna do it myself and see if we can't implement it in some of the groups, maybe even this one if everyone's up for it. Thanks for bringing that up. I love it. Yeah, there was a song when I was growing up. I'm going to sit down, write down and write myself a letter. I think it was Motown. I can't remember exactly. I'm sure somebody can find it. Yeah, very important. And I see a few things coming in on the chat. JM is
We do have Wolf Sanders saying, from dream to goal to plan to action to result. Analyze the result and adjust either the action or a plan. Rinse and repeat.
Nice. Thanks, Wolf.
Manish says, what a beautiful analogy of goal post. Never thought before. And we do have a question on, we do a reflection on Facebook. Rafaela says, I read that book all in a foreign language on a small screen of a smartphone in incognito, not wanting to divide it, but wanting to go on and on. But dividing when seeing the pages can be much encouraging.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely when you have a book, and I also read on electronic media, but when you have a book and there's a cover, on either side, the beginning and an end, it really helps. And I'll talk about that in a second. And I saw from Nicole, what is the difference between goals and priorities, or goals, higher priorities, which I want to achieve earlier? They're very similar, but think about the word priority. It means what you put first. So if you have goals, it's very edifying experience to put them in order. You can decide for yourself. That's an interesting point also. You get to decide what's most important to you. So let's say you have some goals and they say, okay, ask yourself this question: what is the most important thing to you in your life? And I'm telling you, if you just try doing that, you're going to walk around for a few days or even a few weeks thinking like, wait a minute, maybe I'll move this one up a little bit. You can discuss it with those who are in your inner circle and say, okay, this is how I prioritized my goals. And what's most important to me in my life is right here, right now. And they're like, what about this? And when you do it, it'll energize you. Okay, a few more slides. Keep your goals visible, because when you're able to see them, don't let it become visual noise either. Sometimes it helps to rewrite them or take them down from the board where you've gotten used to them and just look at them afresh or read them to somebody else. But if you keep them visible, it will help your mind go towards the goal. After all, why do they put a goalpost? So you know where to kick the ball. So keep your goals in front of you as much as you can and reread them. Where attention goes, energy flows. One of my favorite mantras. And if your attention is going towards your goals, your energy is going to follow after it. Stay the course. So part of staying on course is every once in a while, you may have to adjust your goals. If it's too much, too little, then redo them so that you can stay on a course. And it doesn't matter how small. Listen, birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky is unlimited. So what does it matter how high they go? The point is, if you're developing capacity, you're growing as you try. There you have it. Adjust your goals when needed. It's right there on the screen. Then categorize. Find categories: spiritual, family, professional, health. How many categories can you think of in your life that are distinct? And then go down the list. There are various ways in which you can make spiritual goals. For instance, we did there's a kind of prioritization and goals that you can look at for the Spiritual Fitness Challenge. And you can set your own. In family, there's certain things that enhance the family experience. The number one, in my opinion, and I made a video about this, is taking time to give attention to people in your family that you care about. That makes all the difference. Professional, health, fitness. Okay, next one, of a favorite of mine. There are time frames that you can use that have different effects for goal setting. And so there is, and I hate to break this to everybody now, and I don't mean to sound macabre, but we do have a finite amount of time in this body. There it is. I said it. It's just a fact. So there is a little bit of slight urgency here. However, within this lifetime, there are various time frames that have different uses for setting goals. When do you think would be the best time to set a 1 minute goal? Who could say? I have an answer in my mind that I think about, but what do you think a 1 minute goal is good for?
Hold a stance or how many push-ups, like hold a certain stance, or how many push-ups or
that's a good one.
Or things that you can do.
Yeah.
Or hold your breath or something.
I like that. Yeah. Can you do a plank for 1 minute? So yeah. And if it's a minute, then you could go, I can hold, if someone says just go as long as you can, you'll quit at 22 seconds maybe. But if it's a minute, just stay there, right? What else for 1 minute goal?
You can hold your, if you want to utter something because you're angry or something, you can you can hold your tongue or bite your tongue for a minute and
I
help
like
calm
that.
you down.
I like that. Yeah, don't say anything for 1 minute and don't get into it. Yeah, that's good. And oftentimes the way I think about it is that, have you ever been in a situation where you just can't get moving? You know, you have to clean your room or you have to do some task and it's like, I don't want to just do it for 1 minute. I have 1 minute goal. For 60 seconds, I'm going to move. I'm going to pick up that blanket. I'm going to, whatever it is, you know, try for 1 minute. It's a get going type of thing. And I like the other suggestions too. Really, really great. Then we have different other time categories. You have a plethora, whatever that means, of various categories, 1 hour, 1 day, same principle here, but one of my favorites is a 30-day goal right there in the middle. The 30-day goal is so powerful because you can practically tolerate anything for 30 days if you put your mind to it, and you can achieve so much. It can be life-changing. So feel free to play with these and then also go with the macros too. And I even put it up to 10 years, 1 lifetime, and how about several lifetimes? Because we're on a continuum. We are transcendental spiritual beings in a human experience. We're going to leave this, we're going to step out of this and into another situation. And we carry with us the progress that we make in this lifetime. So think long term, several lifetimes. I don't know if you hear that in corporate much, but there it is. Okay. It's amazing how long it takes to complete something that you're not working on. So it can just become nondescript, very agonizing kind of situation if you don't have that serious goal that you're looking at. And another quote I like: the trouble with doing nothing is you never know when you're finished. And there's again, a kind of nondescript way in which I have a nondescript feeling when I don't have a clear idea where I'm going. And now, my teacher used to say to me all the time, train your mind to think of doing good for others. And so this is one of the ways we've talked about before, selfless service. Think about how to do good for others and set goals for that. It's very fulfilling. By giving, we grow. And by thinking of service, we grow. So in thinking about spiritual goals, how can I increase my service and my service quotient, my selfless service quotient? And in experimenting with it, we find out how we grow, actually. So let's just see if there's any last comments or questions. What one part that you heard stuck in your mind that you're taking away in your pocket?
I would like to share. I think it's very enlightening that you show that Chariot. The way that I view it is that you may have different horses and you may have really good ones, but for the carriage to go and take you to the desirable place, you need to be the master. You're not the driver. Your sense is the driver. You're the master. You tell your mind to control the horses to take you to your destination. That you may tell them at times to speed up. You may tell them that you may take a shortcut to take, different directions. Basically, from what you were saying is that's how you can regulate your senses and not to get too much, not to get too little. And one thing that I don't like setting goals. And it's good that you bring it up at this time of the year. Is really important to set the goals. And as I was listening, I put it down. I said, hey, checklist of the things to do and cross them off. And later that you show the slide, basically break down the bigger task into smaller things. So that's the smaller things that should show up on the checklist. And also you mentioned that make it a present tense, not that I'm going to have a checklist, but I changed it to I have checklist and I cross it off every day.
It's so satisfying to hear from you because you always have such good recall of everything that that we present. And it's amazing how you do that. It's just amazing. You have your mind is like a steel trap.
Your slides are really resonate with me because my kids used to take writing lessons, and seriously, those horses, they reflect the rider. Like the same horse, when my daughter rides it versus my son rides it, will behave differently.
Yes.
And they're giving the same command, but they, respond differently. So that really resonated with me when I see the picture of the carriage, because it's a different person that's in there. So my daughter would control her mind differently, and her hand would translate her commands into the horse differently than my son. And so
horses and humans have been together for a long time in history. And there's a very intimate relationship. And we find a lot of metaphor in the wisdom texts, and it relates oftentimes to the mind. And so the mind's like the horse. So we know about horse whisperers. And those who are good with horses, they make friends with the horse. Then the horse agrees. Yeah, I'll go with you. Wild horses, on the other hand, they're not easy to ride or even approach. And this is actually the metaphor given in the Bhagavad Gita, that if the mind is unbridled, if there isn't a friendship and an agreement with the mind, then you're in for a wild ride. But if you can make friends with your mind, this is the yoga process. Chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, it's all about making friends with your mind. You have to work at it. You have to become a mind whisperer and come to the point where the mind becomes your friend. Then it serves. It doesn't. And that was the question and the point that Blanca brought up in the beginning. Is like, if your mind is out of control, what is the situation? So yoga means really to make your mind your friend. And that's the first statement that comes up in chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. If your mind can become your friend or your worst enemy. Mind is friend, and you only get one. So, make the best of it. Well, one of the, anybody else wanted to say anything? I know we're a little over time here, but if you want to ask another question or make a point, everyone would like to hear what you have to say. And a few people, JM, asked for the presentation.
Yes, I did share the recording.
You got it. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so please try it. I mean, many of you, you're also progressive. You do these things already, I know. But I always find it a good refresher just to start over, especially when we're together and talk about goal setting, and that you can do it for spiritual things also. And go into detail. It's your life. You get to decide, and you're a human, so you can change direction at any time. And one of the easiest ways to do it, I'm going to repeat what I said before, decide what you want and write it down. This is the most powerful technology I've ever come across, a pen and a piece of paper. And if you sit by yourself and just decide, what do I really want to do? Don't be afraid to write it down and say, yeah, these are the things, and then put it in order of priority. And you'll just notice that the mind starts to work in a certain way. Human brain is so powerful, more powerful than an iPhone 12. It'll start working in miraculous ways, even while you're sleeping, to decide which way you want to go. And that's I think that's the most exciting thing about being a human, is making your own choice, not just living under the tyranny of the mind and the senses that tell you what to do, No more bullying from the mind, no more bullying from the senses. We're not going to take it anymore, right? No more. No mas. That's it. Finish. So write down, decide what you want, and then go for it. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking your valuable time. And you can check out the Spiritual Fitness Challenge. There's some very powerful body, mind, and spirit goals in there. And a lot of other people around the world are doing the Spiritual Fitness Challenge. And you can sign up for the program. And any last words, housekeeping, JM?
No, we are good. Very happy to get started again in the new year and looking forward to meeting everyone next week.
Thank you very much. Now we had this thing we started in 2020. We didn't do much mantra today. We did 3 ohms. That's all we got. But there's this Sanskrit saying that people say, I see a lot of these yogis, like in the Himalayas and stuff, they say to each other these 2 words, Hari Bol, which means chant your mantras. And so they say to each other, Hari Bol. So we've been signing off with that. So if everyone wants to unmute and say, Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Oh,
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribo.
Next week.
Haribol.
Haribol.